Hello and welcome to Uncle Grandpa University. This week, we're talking Say Uncle, an episode that I did tell Chris about many moons ago, but I was convinced he'd forgotten about, so decided to not re-remind him, so we could get a relatively cold response to the insanity. So, Chris, what was it about?
What upsets me is we ended the last episode with me saying I'd try and swear less. Which legitimately makes it hard to review this pile of... It's just... It doesn't even... You can't even be like... Because I was watching it going, well, this is the new episode that can't be named. And I'm like, why would we ever name this episode? I can't see any need for it to ever come up again. It's an abomination of television. Truly awful. So Stephen's trying to get his shield to work. Then he asks for help. And I started to watch it, and then whilst eating my sandwich, context you don't need, but anyway. And then Jess came in, and I paused it on Rose appearing. And then I went, held up my hand to silence the woman I love, and then hit play again, because I needed to see there and then if it was Rose. And then it wasn't Rose. And I was like, who the fuck that is? So I paused, talked to her, restarted the episode. And I'm like, maybe it's his uncle? And then he reveals himself to be Uncle Grandpa, which I knew was the name of another cartoon, and it made me realise this was the crossover episode. Thank God. Because anyone watching this that isn't aware of Uncle Grandpa, because I've never seen an episode, and I assure you, this is no advert for the show. I won't be watching an episode either. Then I'm sorry, Dan, there is no plot then. They fuck about for a bit. Sorry, I've sworn. They go to his world for a bit. They make a few jokes, air quotes. And then he, for the first time, uses his shield. You know what it is akin to, Dan? It is akin to... There was some controversy a few years back because on Strictly Come Dancing, which is a British equivalent of Dancing with the Stars, and there was a guest judge, Donny Osmond. You may know him, people, if we have listeners over 40. Donny Osmond was in a boy band called the Osmonds. He was a guest judge that week, and he, for no reason at all, pulled out a 10. And it was the first 10 of the series, and it caused a lot of grief because people were like, well, that's not really the first 10 of the series because it was a guest judge. I feel that way about the Shield. That wasn't the first time he used his shield because that was bollocks.
It's also not the first time he's used his shield. He's summoned his shield
but
4 episodes ago.
No, I know. But like the first time, he's deliberately, other than that panic, used the shield and all that stuff. Like they were making a big deal of their loose attempt to connect it to reality. Was that he was going to be using the shield or learning to use the shield, despite the fact that they make a joke clearly on, and it's so and I've done it. It's the other day, my estate agent called, and they asked to have a look around for one side of the sales side of things. And I'm like, you look, and they were like, I assume we've got a key. I was like, yeah, you were in yesterday for another management visit. And the estate agent was like, talk about one hand not talking to the other. And it really annoyed me because that is neither an explanation for why they've not been more organised, nor is it an apology. And it's similar to this. You can't go, don't worry, it's not canon. And then give us this shite anyway. Like, no, that's not fair. You can't just go, but it's fine because they said it wasn't canon, so that makes up for the fact that it's utter nonsense. it's still utter nonsense. And I assume it's in tone with Uncle Grandpa. I really hope that an evening with thing at the end and that list doesn't imply that he did this to a bunch of shows. Did Uncle Grandpa visit a load of shows for an evening? Is that what happened?
I don't know if he did, but that is a lot of it. So there's a reference to the Powerpuff Girls, Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory, Billy and Mandy from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Mac from Foster's Home.
Ed and Eddie are on there. Finn, who's from an Adventure Time, I believe.
Yep, that's correct. And Clarence, which is from a show called Clarence. Flapjack from The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. Yeah, lots of those. Yeah.
It's not. It's a waste of 10 minutes. In this episode. I don't know what to say, Dan. Do you agree that you can't just be like, it's not canon? Oh, well, okay, fine, great. Still have to, because as soon as they said it's not canon, I could have legitimately turned it off. And then been like, don't know, Dan, wasn't canon. So I decided not to bother because I knew it would irritate me. And it did.
Well, you're not alone. I'll put it that way.
Uncle Grandpa, a deep show, is it? With more meaning than you think at first?
What's that, sorry?
As far as I can tell, it's a child's Rick and Morty without the humour or Morty. It's just less entertaining Rick. It's B-side Rick. Tuna is to salmon what Uncle Grandpa is to Rick from Rick and Morty.
I'm loving this so much.
Carry on.
Okay. You are not alone. Those thoughts are echoed very, very seriously throughout fandom. In fact, and I think you'll like this, there really is a Ronaldo's blog out there. The creators of the show are running a Ronaldo's
That's how to
blog.
calm me down. Bring up that dickhead Ronaldo.
Let me finish my point. And in it, you know how there's that Crying Breakfast Friends show in the context of Steven Universe? It's a show that Steven himself watches. He put up a post about how it crossed over with another show and he hated it, and he gave all the stuff that everyone was ripping on Say Uncle for, which I really like.
It is like, because I'm aware I'm being a cock, and I'm aware that in the context of what they were doing and the fact that it is a crossover episode, for fans of both shows, it was probably great. I am aware of all of that. But in the context of watching it so closely to some of the most incredible episodes this show has done, it was just irritating. And it just felt like 4 steps backwards, because it felt like at its best Uncle Grandpa was what Steven Universe was as its worst. And I'm probably not getting a good... I'm aware... Do you watch this show? Is it better than I'm being led to believe?
I don't watch Uncle Grandpa, but I'm going to maybe upset you now and say that I like this episode.
What, even on its own, in its own context?
I like this episode. I find this episode... I find it funny. I laugh a lot at this episode. There are so many great jokes in this episode. From mostly the fourth wall breaky ones that really get me. Like when he's like, "I was there when you first summoned your shield," and it's one of those really obnoxious Cartoon Network adverts that they do. They put at the bottom of the screen, but it's Uncle Grandpa. And he's obviously watching what's happening. Like that is genius. The idea that he was there because the ad laid across the screen with him in it, and because he's a bit of a fourth wall breaking character, he could see into the show and watch what was happening in Steven Universe. That's genius. Amethyst tripping over the words that you think are just superimposed on the screen. That's fucking genius. There is so many good jokes in this episode. So many. I laugh every time I watch this episode, and I know and understand why anyone would hate it. Absolutely empathise with that.
You must
position.
have been expecting me to hate it.
Yes, 100%. No doubt. But I genuinely always enjoy it because it's... And you're going to hate me because it's the exact opposite of what you just said. I think saying that it's not canon right up front makes it okay. I really do. Because it just basically says... Guess what, guys? We're going to have some silly fun this week. Don't worry. Like, it's not canon. Not to worry. It's just an April Fool's gag, which it was, by the way. The reason it says April Fool's is this aired on April the 2nd, I believe, or April the 1st in 2015. So it was intended as an April Fool's bit. I think it ended up airing a day later than they wanted it to. I think it did air on the 2nd, but that's the intention. And the idea that it starts with you thinking it's going to be a huge, groundbreaking, episode with this reference to Rose, and then turning into utter madness, that's kind of part of the April Fool's gag. In fact, the creators of the show had gone online ahead of this episode and said it's definitely canon, to make it even funnier for when the episode actually airs. And I legitimately really find it funny. I also love that Amethyst eats Pizza Steve. I love that the one of the characters from Uncle Grandpa has a gem sonar, which is a real weird fanny thing that... I say weird, it's not weird. But fans do that. In fact, we got asked that in the Q&A, Chris. You might remember someone asked us what our gem sonar would be, and we didn't know. We don't know where we'd put our gems. We don't know what weapon we'd have. We also don't know what gemstone specifically we would be. But... I find it funny. In fact, I even got a chuckle because apparently in a later Uncle Grandpa episode called The Grampies, Uncle Grandpa wins the award for Best Steven Universe episode. He gives himself an award for the best episode of Steven Universe.
Which
I love so much. The whole thing.
Would you not have preferred and found it more clever if they found a way to make it less ridiculous and made something that could be conceived as canon somehow?
I think the issue you come up against there is that Uncle Grandpa, from what I can tell, is this mad. It's this insane. And I think at a certain point, if you've made the choice that you're going to cross those two shows over, which is look, I'm going to question the initial thinking that led to this, for sure. I don't know who thinks these two shows gel together and where that happened. But fine, okay, you've made the decision that that's going to happen. The best possible outcome is non-canon, because there's no way Uncle Grandpa could be Uncle Grandpa and it still fit in the world of Steven Universe.
Steven's watching... Steven's worried about his shield in the house, and in the background, Uncle Grandpa is on. The guys come back with a new gemstone they've just captured that they don't really understand. The gemstone accidentally flings at the TV and makes Uncle Grandpa real. Then you have and then at the end, they put him back in the TV.
See, I thought you were going to say Uncle Grandpa was on the TV in the background. Then the episode plays out as it does, and at the end, Stephen wakes up and it was all a dream.
No, because I'd consider that to be lazy writing as well. I consider that to be just as lazy as it's non-canon. It's all a dream. I don't like that either. But that you can still have the madness because the gem has made him real, and he still goes back in his box and is no longer real at the end of it.
I guess, but you still can't do the meta stuff. I don't think.
If he has the powers to go between worlds through plot holes, which was a little bit funny, I'll admit, in his show, and they've made that show real, then he can do everything that he can do in his show, which presumably is what he was doing in this episode.
I suppose. For me, I just don't feel like it needs that much and explaining. And also, I'd actually be more. I think I'd like the episode less knowing it was canon in any way. Even if they found a way to try and make it canon, it would bother me the idea that Uncle Grandpa can theoretically exist in the universe of Steven Universe, because it's such a more grounded show comparatively. I know it's a show about sentient rocks, but comparatively it's a more realistic.
It's funny because I'm not up to date with either, but I watched both Brooklyn Nine-Nine and New Girl. I've seen enough of The Simpsons and Family Guy. Like, this is the first time I was watching a crossover where I legitimately had no knowledge, didn't watch the other show, and it was... I can see why people don't like crossover episodes. It was legitimately irritating. I mean, and I think that it gave me appreciation for that scenario.
It's interesting because this year on Supernatural they're doing a Supernatural crossover with Scooby-Doo. That's legitimately happening, and they've got animated versions of Sam and Dean, and I've seen the picture. It looks ridiculous. It looks really silly.
But Supernatural is that show. Like, you can get away with it in Supernatural.
They've done it before in Supernatural, where they found themselves in the dimension where Supernatural is a TV show, and they met the actor versions of themselves.
Yeah, stuff
and
like
they were
that,
all
yeah.
themselves. Yeah, they've done that sort of meta stuff before. So,
can I just give a tiny other rant? CW, for some reason in the UK, have decided to release the 3 Invasion episodes, not counting the Supergirl ones. as its own DVD, which just seems to be a way to milk money out of people.
And this is the Arrow crossover with Flash and Legends?
Arrow Legends and the Flash. Yeah, they've released an Invasion DVD where it's just those 3 episodes.
That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, first of all, one thing I want to reference as well straight away. So there's a really weird and quite obscure callback right at the beginning with this whole coming out of the water in a clam. In one of the first episodes, Steven asks Greg if Rose's cannon was maybe in a cave dungeon or a cloud base or a clam at the bottom of the ocean, and that's apparently the reference there when he comes out of the ocean as Rose.
Doesn't matter, Dan. It's non-canon. Doesn't matter. None of it matters. None of it matters.
It's funny, actually, that you should say that, because on the Wikipedia document for Say Uncle, it says continuity. It should be noted that due to this episode being non-canon, any actual connections to other episodes are highly questionable. You'll be glad to know it also makes a reference to your other favourite episode, Chris, Garnet's Universe. When they're playing the video game, one of the characters there in the video game is Hopper from Garnet's Universe.
Right. Cool.
Wow, you are so angry. I love it.
I think I'd be less. I'd honestly probably be less angry if it weren't. And we are recording them close together as well. If it weren't, this is having your favorite starter in the world, the best and most surprising and delightful main you could possibly imagine, and then someone turning up with a turd for dessert. Like, this is come at a really. Like, we've just watched and recorded some great episodes. Yeah. And then it's just like, surprise!
I think it ends up in this part of the run purely because of the date situation. Because if they want them to do it on April Fool's. Which is, do you not think that makes it slightly better, knowing it was an April Fool's Day episode?
No.
No?
No, I think people need to calm down with April Fools.
Also, Uncle Grandpa sinks a ship that Lars and Sadie are on, which is a visual pun based on the idea of shipping Lars and Sadie, which is what fandom do.
For context, I work in marketing, and April Fools is a nightmare because you can't report on anything because all the brands are like creating fake things. Like,
it's true.
Sorry, what was the last point?
So, there's a visual pun when he sinks that ship that Lars and Sadie are on. That's a visual pun to the fact that the shipping of Lars and Sadie is popular within fandom.
Jeez.
And he uses a head cannon to do it, which is a pun on the term head cannon, meaning, you know, something that's canon in your own head, which is a popular phrase used, online and stuff.
So Lars and Sadie no longer a thing to ship because he sunk the ship.
Well, it was a joke at its expense rather than an actual insight onto where it's going, I suppose.
They were laughing at fans, were they, Dan? Okay, good. Good thing to do.
I mean, I'm enjoying this so much. The Mr. Gus character from Uncle Grandpa appears to be a fan of Steven Universe, and has loads of insight. Has a Tumblr blog, and also has a gem sonar, which we've talked about, which is a legit thing. Oh man, so many fourth wall breakings. Obviously, Garnet saying "I'm ready for this episode to end" is quite funny. I thought.
I just thought, aren't we all? When she said that, I was like, "Yep."
Yeah, Amethyst trips on the runaway subtitle. Uncle Grandpa specifically says the episode isn't canon. I'm just reading from the list here of things that are meta and wall breaking. There's some good ones.
Did you find out? Did it air as part of some sort of evening with Uncle Grandpa thing?
I think it aired directly after a new episode of Uncle Grandpa or before. Does that make you feel better?
But he didn't cross over with Ed and Eddie and.
Oh, I have no idea. I would need to look that up. I have not done. Do you want me to look that up now?
You'd know. Have you seen him do it with Adventure Time? You'd know that.
Oh no, he didn't. He definitely hasn't been in Adventure Time.
Yeah. Right. So.
But he might have done. He might have done some of them though. Let me just quickly check. Uncle Grandpa crossover. Say Uncle. Can't we Network shows crossover with Uncle Grandpa? No.
And there was no retaliation, I take it. Steven Universe didn't then cross over with Uncle Grandpa.
Not that I can tell. No, not that I can find.
Well, it's just so legitimately pointless then.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how you'd feel that way. But you know, I still can't fathom how you didn't find that joke funny that he saw Steven summon his shield the first time because he was there based on the ad.
No, I did. I thought that was vaguely clever, but I wasn't like. I then just wondered whether that was where an advert was actually placed in that episode.
It would not surprise me, seriously, because I've seen, because obviously we're watching like official versions of these.
When you're nipping to America to watch it.
Occasionally I visit America to watch episodes before they're available in the UK officially. I literally visit America through some sort of bay, maybe a bay that formerly used to have pirates in it.
It's too far, Dan. It's too far. It's too close. Too close.
Too close. Run. Those sort of adverts, obnoxious adverts, are all over this and Adventure Time. So for me, I guess that was extra funny because I've seen those adverts and they look and are as big and bold and shiny and distracting as depicted.
And on that, I'm sure if you're a fan, if anyone's listening who's a fan of Uncle Grandpa, I apologise if you find it funny. I'm sure with more context, I probably would as well. I'm not meaning to crap on you. If you're a fan of Uncle Grandpa, I fully appreciate how this probably is entertaining. But as a fan of just Steven Universe, it's just utter drivel. With a few, but the funny gags don't outweigh the sheer ugh.
But this is the thing, right? It's for me, and I get it, and I still do get it. For me, though, it's 10 minutes of my life, I laughed a bunch, and it doesn't even count, so it doesn't even matter that it's weird.
I'm just so grateful that I ate a sandwich whilst watching it because it just at least I was doing that.
I mean, yeah, fine. Did you like that Uncle Grandpa is everyone's uncle? That means he's your uncle too, Chris.
No, I didn't like it.
Did you like his? Did you like his realistic? Did you like his realistic tiger thing, befriending lion?
Nope.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy Pizza Steve trying to replace our Steven with the little hair?
No, I didn't like Pizza Steve at all.
Did you like Amethyst eating Pizza Steve? And then
no.
Wow. Did anything at all positive about this episode? One morsel, one tiny fragment of a thing you liked about this episode.
The credits. No, I'm being deliberately grumpy. But no, not really. I can see some of the humor in some of the jokes.
Gotcha. So I mean, I'm a Say Uncle apologist. It turns out, okay, especially in terms of fandom, because most fans seem to.
I think that's the other thing. You've done such a good job of representing that side of fandom. I really feel like I need to power through and represent the side that thought it was bollocks.
Yeah, and that is. I love that that's how you feel about it, because I feel like if we'd have both ended up on the same side, we would. This is a more interesting debate because we've fallen on opposite sides of it. But yeah, I've never found it offensive. I've always enjoyed it. I always like watching it. I do genuinely find it quite chucklesome. It's not the same sort of comedy we get from an episode of Steven Universe like the one we just had, which was Joyride. But for me,
why then? Sorry to cut over you, but if you found it that funny, why haven't you been? And I don't really want to give any more time to this, but why have you not been inspired to check out Uncle Grandpa?
I think. See, now that's an interesting question. I think that in the context of this, it's funnier for how out of place it is, and I would worry a show that was just weird, random nonsense wouldn't be as amusing as invading a show that's normally quite straightforward and injecting it with some weird random nonsense. Does that make sense? The jokes I laugh at most here were the meta ones about the show itself.
But how do you know without watching it that they don't embed that in the same way that Adventure Time does?
Yeah, you know, maybe you're right, and maybe one day I'll check out Uncle Grandpa and I'll find out that I love it.
I just wondered. We're certainly not doing Uncle Grandpa Observers or
Uncle Grandpa University. No, I can't imagine that would be something we'd ever need to do. It's certainly not going to have enough depth to actually just dissect it. It's at best we'd be able to go, that was kind of funny, and then move on.
Yeah. I like that joke. I didn't. That would be the whole podcast.
Yeah. There you go. In fact, if you want to just take that moment and loop it 10 times.
Yeah.
That would be an episode of
So
Uncle
wait, in
Grandpa
fact, let's do it
University.
properly though. So you say I like that joke, and then I'll say I didn't.
Okay. I like that joke.
I didn't.
There you go. So if someone wants to
There you
take
go,
that and loop that for like 20 minutes, that's an episode of Uncle Grandpa University.
Don't go to the effort of making a logo for it. It's not worth the time.
And now you've said that, someone definitely will.
It'd be really bad if someone did.
Yeah, but I legitimately though, I get it. I really don't want to sound like I'm just sort of going like you're wrong, because I understand. I've felt the way I think people feel about this episode, and I get the passion, totally understand. But I just found it so. It was so inoffensive to me, and I know not a lot of people feel that way, so that's fine. I get that.
Well, to show you how annoying, though, a little reveal for you now, Dan. To show you how annoying the it's not canon, so it doesn't matter thing is, I've actually not been recording my end of this conversation because it's not canon, so it doesn't matter. I don't see why we should upload the episode.
See, I'm sure
not
you're
even joking.
See, now I'm scared that that's true.
It is true. Just to prove a point.
No, that's not true, because then you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to say that point.
No, but I know it, and I can just tell people about it on the next episode.
But you wouldn't want to infect another episode with talk about Uncle Grandpa.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. No, of course I haven't done that. But
that'd be very dumb. That would be so stupid, because you'd be killing your own point doing that, because obviously no one would ever hear you say the point.
But I never you'd have wanted so much proof to prove I hadn't done that. But it just the anger how angry would you have been if I had done that?
Fairly angry, because I thought this was quite funny.
Yeah, no, it's all recorded. Don't worry.
Phew. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think end it there.
Yeah, now it feels proper. This feels like the most genuinely awkward ending we've ever done. Amazing.
I mean, yeah. You genuinely got me there. For a second, I really... I really thought you'd not...
Did I really? Because I thought I hadn't until the bit where I went, not even joking. That's when I felt like I might have had you.
Yeah, you got me. You got me eventually. At first, I was like, of course you haven't done that. And then, I started to think, what if he's that dumb? All right.
That's what's annoying is you've taken me getting you with a legitimate prank and turned it into, well, I just thought you were that much of an idiot, Chris. You've turned it into a question of my intelligence, which just feels like it takes away the
That's the only way you
achievement.
convince me that that's a thing you would do, because why would you waste my time to make that point? It's not even... And also, then we'd be missing an episode, of the podcast, because your whole point would be lost because you didn't record your own point. It would be a pointless exercise for so many reasons.
Oh, yeah, it would.
So it would be an extraordinarily stupid thing to do. So first I'm like, of course he hasn't done that. That would be stupid. And the more you're like, I have. I'm going, maybe he is that stupid.
No, I'm not.
Cool. Anyway, right, that's everything. Let's end it. I can't believe we've given as much time to this as we gave to Ocean Gem.
Yeah, I just looked at the time and I was like, that is depressing.
Anyway, so we'll speak to you next time as we're talking about an actual canonical episode of Steven Universe titled Love Letters. So I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next time as we discuss Love Letters.